Hey everybody, welcome back to Kicking It in the Second Half. Kish YZ, I am D, and we're here by myself actually. We're not here with anybody, it's just me. So this is episode, I think it's going to be episode 36, I can't remember exactly, but I'm going to call this episode most likely Over Exaggerated. And what I mean by that is just kind of things you can kind of blow out of proportion if you will, or if you would, but not necessarily, because some things might actually be what they really seem to be, but they're going to be things that we can actually just overanalyze. So I just have a few things here I want to go over. So let's just start out. I want to go over Utah versus the Sixers. Excuse me. Utah versus the Sixers. The builds of them, not necessarily the games between them. Just wanted to look at where the Jazz are and where they have been over the last year. Shout out to Dejuan, the All-Star, bro. Hey, I appreciate you letting me use your music and the video content as well. But yeah, he's a big Utah Jazz fan. He's out there in Salt Lake City. So, click on the link here if you want to check his page out. He's got an album that's about to drop here this month. If it hasn't dropped already, I'm not sure when I'm getting this out. But yeah, definitely check him out there. Shout out to the fan, bro. And yeah, I just want to get into the builds of the Utah Jazz and the 76ers because, we always are talking about Ben Simmons nowadays with the Sixers because of, him not playing the way he did play last season, the way he has been playing in the past, which is still the same way he plays to this day. As far as the last time we saw him on court for NBA action, he's not a three-point shooter whatsoever. So, obviously the thing is basically, can we trade Ben Simmons, or how can we trade, or what should we trade for? Because, the way it looks, sometimes the narrative is like the Sixers are wanting to try to work things out with Ben Simmons, which right now is not really in either one of their best interests between Simmons and the Sixers. You kind of just need to move on from this, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to compare them to the Utah Jazz as far as what they have. So let's look at what the Utah Jazz have. What I have written down here, we have, a Depoy, Defensive Player of the Year, and Rudy Gobert. So we need something similar like that with the Sixers, and I think you do have some great defensive elements. I mean, Joel Embiid is great on defense when he plays. You also have, players like Danny Green who are great on-ball defenders. You also have Tobias Harris. So you might not have the defensive stance as far as the Stifle Tower and Rudy Gobert, but you do have that defensive, genetic makeup, like that DNA within your organization, within your system of players there that really can kind of coordinate with what the Utah Jazz are doing as a whole. You can kind of work that and mold that with the Sixers. So let's also look at, the Utah Jazz has Sixth Man of the Year and Jordan Clarkson. What can we do with the Sixers side? Maybe they don't have quite yet that Sixth Man of the Year candidate player, but maybe they can get somebody like that within the trade with Ben Simmons, or you kind of develop or use somebody else in that role. Maybe Shake Milton, if he develops some more, could be like a six-man type of guy like that with more scoring opportunities, depending on if they want to work the offense around him some more when he's actually in the game with the second unit. The coaching, I don't think the coaching's that bad of a problem. I did say before that the coaching was a problem with Ben Simmons, and I do believe that because Ben Simmons is a point guard, or that's where they list him, that's where they like to play him. I felt like last year in the playoffs or going forward, you put Ben Simmons at power forward. He can be easily a point forward. He does not shoot threes. Work him in and out of the post. He loves to get rebounds. He likes to make plays for others. Obviously, he'll give up a layup over Trae Young to make a pass, a play for others. So, use him as a point forward. Put him there in the paint. I'd like to see him there. So, but outside of that, when it comes to coaching, Doc Rivers, he has a chip under his belt with the Celtics organization, but he's led teams on basically great playoff stretches, playoff runs. So I don't think the coaching is that much of a problem there as far as working with the players that he does have after you move on from Ben Simmons. So therefore, it's very compatible or comparable to Coach Quinn Snyder there for the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz also has like an X factor of some sorts. Well, a collective X factors and players, but and specifically Bogdanovich, I like what he does there with their team. He's the starter for them, but he can get it going points-wise at any time. And like I said, going back to Tobias Harris, you have him, but you also have like Tyrese Maxey now, who's become more of a, he's got more of a prominent role. He's starting now because Ben Simmons is absent. So I think right there was your answer for last year's playoffs of putting Tyrese Maxey and or Shake Milton as your starter. But, looking in hindsight, if they would have done that and, like I said, just shifted Ben Simmons down to the power forward, because Embiid can shoot threes, so you kind of stretch him out as the 5-man on the perimeter there, I think that works, and you just play the in and out game. So I thought that's something they should have adjusted for, after a couple losses into that last series, that, it's just worth the experiment, or you're going to get bounced, so just try it. But yeah, anyway, so what can we get from Ben Simmons? So I didn't do a whole lot of research prior to doing this. I just kind of wanted to get this content out a little bit because of, just a time lapse. I wanted to do this a few days ago, but I didn't get to it. So now that I'm recording, I just kind of picked up where my thought last left, where I wrote this down. And I was kind of thinking, or going back to what we heard rumor-wise in the summer, basically when the Sixers wanted to trade for Damian Lillard, and Portland countered with, we don't want to trade Damian Lillard. We take Simmons, but we want to keep Lillard. We'll offer you a package with McCollum. So if we're doing something like that, because that's very realistic as far as what could possibly happen, I think that is possibly the move they might need to make, or like revisit, because, once again, if you're comparing the teams, you put in somebody like CJ McCollum. Yeah, he might not be the Donovan Mitchell type of player, but last year he was on track to make an all-star team in my opinion, as far as the way he was playing right before that injury, where he would have missed the all-star game either way, even if he got voted in. So I think that you do plug him in the Sixers' way of running things. You have Tyrese Maxey there, who's going to run the point, but you have CJ McCollum, who will go out and score you buckets, and he's a great on-ball defender. I mean, this guy all around, yeah, he's not Damian Lillard, but you don't necessarily need Damian Lillard to make this work in this scenario. So I do like that CJ McCollum trade because of his fit there. So if you're the Sixers, I think you do that. And then obviously, if you're trading Ben Simmons and it's not Damian Lillard, they're going to probably give you more back than what you would have gotten with Damian Lillard, which would probably be like a straight up deal, is what I'm assuming like the Sixers would have wanted, and all that Portland probably would have given up if they wanted to do that. But like I said, with the CJ trade, you could have probably gotten like a Norman Powell type of player, which would get me back to what I was saying with the X factor. When I talked about Bogdanovich with Utah, you have there Norman Powell, who, if he's not a starter, he's coming off the bench either or. He might give you that 6-man position like you do have with Utah and Jordan Clarkson. So either way, I think it's a win-win if you're getting Norman Powell and you're getting CJ McCollum. I don't know how that looks. I didn't try it on the ESPN trade machine as far as the salaries. You might have to have some other players involved or something like that to make that work. But if that's a realistic scenario, I actually like that for the Sixers organization. Like I said, you have Tyrese Maxey there. You plug in CJ. You got Tobias there. You got Embiid there. And what did they put? Thibault is maybe their power forward. I can't remember their roster structure at the moment. But you have all these different pieces there. They also have Niang there from Utah that had been playing in Utah the last several seasons. So that's one Utah player that's already there. So he would fit that system if they're modeling their system after Utah. And, Utah was the number one team in the West last year in the regular season. And Philly was the number one team in the East last season as far as the end of the regular season. So I think the comparisons are kind of already there. But if they push and get Simmons out and just go ahead and start over as far as your team build, your team chemistry, you have most of what you need already there. It's just a plug-and-play type of situation, in my opinion. And I think CJ would be happy there because he's on a competitive team still. He would probably actually make it further in the playoffs with the Sixers than he did with Portland, just because Portland was kind of either getting bounced in the first round or just, showing up in the second round, but just kind of, never getting over that hump, where the Sixers have a chance, an opportunity to make it to the conference finals or the NBA finals. I mean, if you put this team together early, like you want to do it before New Year's, definitely you want to kind of do it before, in my opinion, the trade deadline, which would be the All-Star game. Obviously, you can't trade after the trade deadline, but you definitely want to do it sooner rather than later. That way you can start working on that team chemistry. And I think that's something that the Sixers need to revisit. Just that Ben Simmons trade for C.J. McCollum and see what all you can get with that. You don't need Damian Lillard to make this team function. You just need to get rid of Simmons to make some type of camaraderie within the organization and kind of just alleviate all that extra stress that's put on the shoulders of the organization. Just move on. So let's move on. Let's move on to what can we talk about next? I think I do have something on here about Stephen A. making a comment about LeBron won't win any chips. I think he was referring to after this year. I'm not sure if he was actually considering this year. I didn't watch all of that clip, but he said something about LeBron just basically being on his last leg as far as not winning any chips. And that is a big part of the Warriors coming back into rise as far as being the best team in the West. So we'll get back to the Warriors. So just real quick as another plug to the Lakers thing here and the LeBron and company. We're going to get to AD getting mad. I think he had a game the other night where he his shoe fell off and he was trying to put his shoe on, and the referees allowed the other team to inbound the ball after the make and get the ball down the court before he even had a chance to put his shoe back on his foot, and he kind of got mad. And then another time where he just, I guess he dunked on Giannis. I'm not sure if that's the same game, and he had it basically like a no call. I can't remember the exact picture or the video of that dunk, but it did look like it was an and one call, but he missed that. So I like Anthony Davis mad. I like the accountability that he's actually holding towards the team when he's talking about them being trash, them being garbage. That is truth of the matter there, because that's what the team is playing like. If your aspirations are to be a championship team, then you have to play like that during the season. You have to have that mindset, and you have to go out there. You can't just turn it on at the end of the regular season. You got to put in the work. And right now, they're being completely honest, or he's being completely honest. They're trash. And that goes back to what I said before at the beginning of the season in the previous podcast, was that the Lakers, if you're going to be riding or rolling with the Lakers, you got to be patient here. Now, that doesn't mean that this team will be the same team or the same makeup of players by the time the end of the season comes. If they have to make a trade, then they will make a trade. I think it's still early to decide whether or not to make a trade. I mean, LeBron's in and out right now with the health, and you have Russ still trying to find his footing. I think Russ is just, it's still trying to control that type of player as far as his fit. You can make that fit, but it's when to turn that on and off. Basically, when to plug and play Russ, because he's always playing at that same high level, whether he's having a great game efficiency-wise or not, or whether he's turning the ball over a lot or not. He's still going to play at that same level. So it's just a plug and play with him. But like I said, you didn't bring in Russ for the scoring. You brought him as an intensity type of player, and to kind of lift up the team and to make plays for others. Carmelo is your other scorer there, in my opinion. Maybe that's what they need to shake up a little bit. It's maybe plug Carmelo in as a starter. It'd be kind of hard, in my opinion, to see them sitting Russ and making him a six-man type of player, but maybe just plugging in Carmelo would definitely help. Of course, they're still missing some other guys. But I do, like I said, I just wanted to stress on the AD side of this, of how he's taking accountability. So he's actually growing as a player and looking at the team and calling them out early and being that vocal leader. So I think he did pick a lot of that up from LeBron James, which is, reflecting in the way he's handling things now as far as being the leader of this team when LeBron's not there. So I'm really liking what I see there. So if you're a Lakers fan, just keep being patient. And as far as what Stephen A. says, sometimes I think that man just likes to get LeBron mad just to see what he can do. I mean, there is some truth to what he's saying, because the Warriors, they're playing so great. So let's get into the Warriors. This is not really an over-exaggeration. The Warriors are on point, and I kind of said that earlier on. I said the Warriors are going to be a threat this year. I didn't realize that last year when we were talking about the Warriors that they were going to do so well. And like I said before, that's kind of going back to the build of Curry and how he's built, and he added some more muscle tone to his body to endure taking hits and whatnot. So that keeps him on the court longer without any injuries. So I do like that, and he kept that same body. So, you're looking at what they got going now. And what I like about the Warriors organization, because I'm not a Warriors fan, but what I like about what they're doing is how they develop players into their system. And that credibility has to go to Steve Kerr, Coach Steve Kerr, because, if you look back at his career or parts of his career, he played with Michael Jordan. So he's been with other, played with superstar players, one of the GOAT players right there. And then you also consider that under that, when he was playing with MJ under the Bulls, he was playing under Coach Phil Jackson, so learning that triangle system there. So, he gets his offensive mindset game from the Chicago Bulls, and then later in his career, he went to play for the Spurs under Greg Popovich's system. And, Popovich is known for his fundamentals, working with Tim Duncan and how he structured things there, and their defense. So he gets his defensive mindset from Popovich. So this is like the brainchild of Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich, and that's what we're seeing here. That's why the Warriors are so successful, because they had Coach Mark Jackson back when they had at least Clay and Steph. I'm not sure if he coached Draymond. I can't remember that. But with having those two players, and then in his first year leading them to a championship. So, kudos to him and the way he structured this. And now we're seeing that cycle again, because now we're looking at Wiggins, who is in his second year with Golden State here, and he's breaking through. He's breaking out. You can see the confidence there. They're not having him hesitate with the things he's doing. I mean, when he played against his ex-team, the Timberwolves, the other night, he was dunking on Karl-Anthony Towns' ex-teammate. You could just see the intensity there, because this guy was a number one draft pick, and he was highly rated coming out of college. So, he was looked at as being worth that number one draft pick, and the confidence was just shaken in that organization, because he just was, I guess, one of those players that needed to be pushed some more, but the potential was there, and the Warriors definitely have a steal there with the way they developed him. And then the other guys that they have, the rookies, or you look at a player like Damian Lee, who comes off the bench and sometimes have a burst in scoring, but you look at the guy there that's filling in for Klay Thompson. Why can't I remember his name right now? Jordan Poole, my bad. You have Jordan Poole right there, and Jordan Poole is just taking over that filler of that secondary score. I mean, look how he plays the game, how he shoots his threes and shoots them in transition, and they're able to run that same exact play style that they would run if Klay was there. From last year to this year, the Warriors have made a big jump, and that's without Klay Thompson returning so far. And that's what's scary, because like I said before, they have all these assets. Oh, and they have Wiseman. Can't forget about Wiseman. He didn't play a whole lot last year, but there might not be too much development there because of the injury, so that doesn't allow him to develop his game personally as a player like Andrew Wiggins did from last year to this year. But, if he's healthy, that's only going to add to the team. But outside of the team having all these players, like I mentioned before, they also have all these assets that could be flipped for another player depending on what they choose to do. Obviously, the Warriors are always going to want to invest in their future, but that championship window, I think when some of these players return before the trade deadline, they can kind of analyze where they're at. And this might be enough because, like I said, that play style, how do you guard Curry and Klay at the same time when you mix in a Jordan Poole type of player that can get his offense off almost at will at this point? You're talking about Steph dominating and Poole doing what he's doing right now. Well, you wait till Klay comes back, and once he gains full health, assuming there's no more setbacks in his rehab or injury, then you have to consider that there's going to be more spacing there for these guys to operate. So, Curry's already dangerous now, but you give him more space, or you give Jordan Poole the green light as a third option when he touches the ball, look to score. That's going to be tough for the teams out there who are playing them, East, West, anybody. Like, you're going to have to go through the Warriors if you're going to want to get out the West. But shout out to the Phoenix Suns. Shout out to Tavern Geek, because he's a Phoenix Suns fan there. But the Phoenix Suns, they're on an 11-game win streak as of the making of this video, and that is amazing there within himself. And there was really not much of a segue there, but I just wanted to cut right back to Phoenix for a little bit there, just to mention how great they're doing and not to discredit them. And sorry if I kind of underrated them as far as earlier in the beginning of the season when I did previous podcasts. They are doing great. They're doing excellent, and they have a lot to develop there. But still keep an eye on Ayton. Like I said, he didn't get an offer for an extension or that max contract. So, we're going to look to see if he plays big or not, or if the organization is actually looking at maybe trading him down the road if the opportunity arises to get another great player to fill in his spot. But as of the makeup of the team right now, they're doing really great. Having JaVale McGee added as another veteran player with championship experience is going to definitely help them down the road. But they're already benefiting from that right now when Ayton was missing some time. So between him and Frank Kaminsky, so they have a great organization there, and that just comes from an overhaul of the organization from the top down. So that's amazing to see. But yeah, going back to the Warriors of what they're doing, you could see how that organization, it's not just about the individual players as far as Steph Curry defining the Warriors. Yes, he gives them the culture, the atmosphere, but it's the other guys who also follow suit, and how Steve Kerr puts out his game plans and implements them and makes them work for these players that come to this team. So it's amazing to see. And they also have Andre Iguodala back this year, so they're regaining some of their roots that they were missing over the last year or since Kevin Durant left, and that was just a different type of Warriors team now than back then. So now they're getting back to that 2015, 2016 type of Warriors style there, and I really like that. Like Andrew Wiggins is like an upgraded version of Harrison Barnes, or should be, because of the way he plays defense at times. And he's a great on-ball defender as well, so we can't forget about that. The guy's pretty tall. I think he's like 6'7", 6'8". So, he's small forward for sure, but, a Harrison Barnes that could, score, create his own shot, and not just shoot threes as far as what Harrison Barnes was doing back in the day, but you still have that type of defense. Wow. Yeah, shout out there. I talked a lot about the Warriors, so let's just do a quick plug and play, because I think the next episode, am I talking about the Nets here on this episode? Do we want to talk about the Nets because of the over-exaggerated when the Warriors beat the Nets? I think that's kind of what I was starting to go with this episode when I was writing down some notes, because it's like, the Warriors don't have Klay Thompson, and then they just kind of like pretty much buried the Nets in that last quarter. And the Nets, if this was a finals matchup, how do they survive this? Because there's no Kyrie unless, Kyrie comes back. But looking at things right now, that's just like saying Ben Simmons is going to be playing for the Sixers this year. It's a high chance that this is not going to happen. So looking at Durant and Harden, and like I said, going back to the brain of Steve Kerr and what he did to kind of ice these players so they wouldn't get going and get their shots off like they're used to, which would propel the team and get them the win or have it a closer game. They ice these players to make other players score, so you take the chance of, well, if your other players beat us, great game. They had a heck of a game, and that's what it would take to beat us, but we're not going to let you drop 50, Kevin Durant. We're not going to let you drop 35, 10, and 10, James Harden. So, that was the game plan, and it worked very well. They came out with the win, and big time. So, I do have to plug this in, and I don't have a whose man is this for this episode, unfortunately. I haven't fabricated any of those yet, but it will hit me again. But I do like to, I would like to plug in real quick. If you were Durant, Kevin Durant, would you trade Harden and Kyrie for Steph Curry? Just a hypothetical question. Don't think this is a realistic possibility at all, but you're looking at your team, and if you had that power, Kyrie's one of your great friends, best friends in the NBA, whatever the narrative is, or however it is. If you're Kevin Durant, do you kind of like re-stab or not re-stab, but like stab your friend in the back after he stabbed you, kind of in a way to speak, where Kyrie's not trying to get the vaccine to help play with the team for personal reasons, which is understandable for personal reasons, but for team-wise, it's not really all that acceptable because you're not playing because of the state regulations, and if they don't change, then you're still stuck in that same boat. So, like I said, just hypothetical, your friend isn't doing what he can to help you out, and your other friend here, it's just maybe not enough to win a championship. Ultimately, that's what you're wanting to do, not just put on a great performance or just make it to the finals. You're wanting to win more chips. Do you consider, would you hypothetically consider it? Is it worth sending Kyrie Irving and James Harden? Of course, if Kyrie went to the Warriors, he couldn't play in California either. But, sending Harden over there alone with Kyrie, is that worth it to you to have Steph Curry just think about that. There's no right or wrong answer because it's all hypothetical. This is not realistic that's going to happen. So just wanted to leave that out there. I probably put that on Twitter just for the plug for this episode since I didn't have a Whose Man Is This. So yeah, I hope everybody has enjoyed listening to this. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Anchor.fm, be sure to hit us up on YouTube if you want to check out some of our other content. I do some shoes content out there and some fashion things on Instagram, so you can check us out on Instagram. Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok are all the same at Kish YZ, KISH_YZ. And if you're watching this on YouTube, but you want to kind of listen to this on the road or while you're flying or whatever you're doing while you're working and you want the audio only, you can go to Anchor.fm or Spotify. There might be a few other places we might be, but you can look us up under Kish YZ, KISH, then a space, YZ, and check us out for your NBA talk. So everybody, thank you again for kicking it in the second half. Peace and love.